Hi, and welcome to Open Mic Podcast. Today is a very special episode and a special day. This is our 100th episode. I started this endeavor about a year and a half ago because podcasts were becoming popular, and I thought it would be a great way to communicate with an audience that I didn't even have, direct to our community. And it's been exactly that. We never imagined when we started Open Mic that by the 100th episode, we would be named a top 10 podcast to watch and have over 3 million views. But we are proud and humbled by the support we have received from loyal viewers and listeners like you. At the end of this episode, we have a very special announcement you will not want to miss. So as they say, stay tuned. But right now, let's bring in our special 100th episode guests. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what you're going to hear on my podcast, Open Mic. I'm going to tell you things that most lawyers won't tell you. We expose the truth and bring you justice. I want you to go for the win in law and in life.
You want an honest man, but you don't understand. I want to be here
Well, first, let me start out by saying thank you for everyone being here. It's a trip down memory lane, seeing all your faces, Julie and Aaron and Kenny and Bill and Kevin Dietz. Celebrating our 100th episode. I didn't think we would get here. When I started the podcast, it was just kind of out of fun, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to do something because podcasts were all the rage. I never thought we'd get to 100 podcasts. The fact that you guys are here to help me celebrate 100 is very meaningful to me. The fact that my producers just told me that we're over 3 million downloads and listens, that's rare. And I think that, when I started this podcast, we didn't know which direction fully it was going to go. And when I first met Aaron Salter, episode 32, and Aaron told me his story, I remember the emotions, I remember the sadness, I remember the shock. Being a lawyer 28 years, handling only civil cases, that this was happening in our justice system was outrageous to me. And then meeting Kenny and Julie and several others, it really did affect me. It really did change me. And at the end of this podcast, I'm going to make an announcement. I'm going to tell you guys something that I haven't told many people, that all of your sharing and courage and love that you have shown me and the fact that we are now friends and we talk and we have lunch and we text each other and we help each other has changed my life for the better. And I appreciate that. And it's meaningful to me. And the fact that it's only been a year and a half that I didn't think this was coming. I didn't know. It's amazing that at my age we're still learning things and that I'm still growing. And as an attorney, to learn things about the law that you didn't know and to admit it, I think is pretty cool. So, and I thank Kevin Dietz for helping, introduce me to this stuff because it was probably your idea to have Aaron on, and introducing me to these amazing people has changed my life. And to be quite honest, it's changed my family's life because I have 3 daughters. Two of them are in college. They are watching our episodes. They were both social work education majors, and now they're talking to me about social justice classes. They're talking to me about law school. And I think it's because of the 3 of you and Bill and others. And I wasn't even planning on talking about that, but that's true. I mean, I was sitting with my freshman last night looking at her classes, and she was looking at social justice and criminal reform and classes like that at her college. And it's like, wow, it's educating people. It's hard to turn away. It's hard to not want to learn more and hear more. So saying all that, I'm going to just start with Aaron. And Aaron, your story is amazing, heartbreaking, scary that it could happen to such a nice young man who was, won a partial college scholarship on his way to Arkansas. And the fact that this happened to you, I'd like you to tell our listeners and viewers who maybe didn't see episode 32 a little bit about what happened to you starting in 2003.
Okay, 2003, August the 3rd, I witnessed my cousin, being shot real bad. It was a drug deal, basically gone bad, because I came home from college, with no funds. I came home with no funds, and that's the only thing that was available to me at that time. I don't know if people really remember, like in 2003, what was going on. We had like the lowest unemployment rate ever. So all the jobs that I really looked for, they really wasn't trying to hire like part-time college students or short-term basically workers. So I did roofing, worked at McDonald's, I did various jobs, but none of them was where I could have saved money up. So I started going with my cousin that was basically always in the street. And he was selling drugs at that time. I thought I could make some fast money and go back to school, and it didn't work like that. He wound up having a bad drug deal with one of his friends that they had an altercation about a month prior where it caused him to get shot 12 times. And I was right there with him. And, at the time, I just fled. I'm playing football. I'm not trying to get into none of that. I'm just trying to make some extra money to take something off my mother. But in the process, that's what happened. And after that, my cousin survived. I was in intensive care, but he survived. And the guy that actually shot him 3 days later went and committed another crime, which I was mistaken identification for, though. So that was the big deal with that.
So you were arrested. Where were you when you were arrested? You were at a family member's house?
Yes, I wasn't arrested at the family member's house, but at the time of the crime, like I was at a family member's house because of everything that happened to my cousin.
Right. You had multiple alibi witnesses.
Absolutely. I had my whole family knew, and it was like a thing like, okay, just go to the west side type of thing and just lay low till we figure out some of the stuff that's going on. So they basically all knew where I was at.
And tell a story about the shock. You were arrested for this crime that you clearly didn't commit.
Right. Yeah. So I was arrested. I was arrested for selling intent to sell crack cocaine under 50 grams because I had some drugs that was left over from when I was with my cousin. And when I fled, I tried to sell them, and I wound up getting caught maybe 3 a.m. on Mack and Van Dyke. So I went in for the dope charge, and they wind up, trying to give me additional charge on first-degree murder. So they actually had a writ served, and they writted me out to 1300 Bovian, where I met this detective named Investigator Austin. Investigator Austin, he seemed like he didn't care about what was going on, like he basically already knew what happened in this case. He said, I investigated some stuff in the neighborhood. I don't know how he can investigate nothing in the neighborhood on me because I'm not from that neighborhood, for one. Of course, I was in college, so he didn't see me as a kid that's always got in trouble because that wasn't me. That wasn't the life that I was leading, and the rest.
And you maintained your innocence for that murder from the very beginning.
From the very beginning, a female named Joanne Thomas, which was the deceased in my case, that was his sister. So she actually stood up. During, when the family is able to talk to the defendant, and they actually say some words or whatever. Her words was that she knew that I didn't kill her brother. And she said she knew who killed her brother was a guy named E. you know, and it's like the everybody, they should have been stepping up to be like, well, okay, I knew it was holes in this case, I knew it was this, and I knew it was that. Like, that testimony right there is so powerful that it's no way that I should have still went to prison, man. Like, that should have been a wake up call for somebody somewhere to be like, okay, well, maybe we rushed this guy's, you know, trial, man, but they didn't do it.
And then you end up in prison. Did you realize at some point, wow, innocent people end up imprisoned? How this happens in real life?
No, actually, I thought I was the only one that it happened to. You know, I went through a whole battle with God behind this, because I just didn't see how a guy could sell drugs and wind up being in prison for the rest of his natural life, like at the age of 21. Like, I didn't believe that at 21 my life can be gone, and I was, you know, looking at going to the NFL and everything, man. So that's just a big turn right there.
What was the key to finally getting out? What was the turning point?
Man, it was, the turning point was when my federal defender team actually submitted an application to the Conviction Integrity Unit. And that's what happened. And when they did that, it's like, man, I was out within like 30 to 60 days, man.
Refresh our memories. What was the smoking gun that the Conviction Integrity Unit hung their hat on to finally allow you out?
I believe the smoking gun, what they really could hold their hat on is like the file. You know, like a lot of times, like defense attorneys, they're not able to go into an actual evidence room or anything like that and look for a file. Whereas the Conviction Integrity Unit is within the prosecutor's office. They can just go down there and get it. You know what I mean? And when they went to try to go get my file, it had like a sticky note on it that said, do not copy. And this was like my single mug shot that they was withholding from me, and that was supposed to be marked in evidence. See, now I'm learning, man, that, you know, I'm out here and I'm talking to people that actually investigated my crime. I'm learning that it was a lot of stuff that happened that was, you know, blankly, man, and just led towards them trying to cover up, man, or basically pin a murder on me, man.
So what was it about the mugshot that they didn't want you to, why didn't they want you to have that?
Because for one, my whole claim was suggestive identification. So that's what they used to identify me. A guy used my mug shot with my height, weight, all this stuff on there as a reason to ID me, man. That's crazy.
Didn't your height and weight not add up to a witness? Weren't there witness identifications that had skinnier and shorter?
Right. The guy initially gave the description of a guy named Rob, 5'7", 150 pounds to 170. And then he said, if I'm not mistaken, he said another guy 6 foot thin.
Thin. Yeah. Well, you're not 5'7", 150. That's me. Right. You're a lot bigger and taller than me. So the identification didn't match. There was lots of things in your case that didn't add up. And if anybody's interested in hearing all of the details, episode 32, we go into it for well over an hour. And Kevin, is there any other facts in this? I mean, I remember that you were in prison with the man who actually committed the crime. Is that true?
Absolutely. I was in the prison with him. At the time, I didn't really hate this guy, because I'm like, it's not his fault that the police targeted me. Like, he did a crime and got away with it. Like, how can I be mad at this guy? You know? So I started asking, because I was in prison asking and trying to solve my own stuff. And I was asking guys basically like that was from that particular neighborhood, like, what did they know about the crime? Did they know this person that got shot? What they know about him? You know, digging into stuff, because I had to work hand in hand with the federal defender's office. I had to feed them information, because they like, what else can you find to help yourself?
Right. Did you get this man to help you and eventually write you a letter?
The guy that actually committed the crime?
Didn't you get him to do something for you?
No, I didn't get him to do nothing. He did everything on his own free will.
Okay. What did he do? Tell us what he did.
The thing with him, though, he said he wrote a letter to my attorney saying that he'll basically be able to help me if I could sign some type of contract with him for when I get compensated. He, for a statement. But basically, he just ruled his stuff like you're not even credible now. You just was basically putting your testimony for hire, man. That's not even credible. So we couldn't even use him if we wanted to, but he reached out to my attorney and everything organically. Like, it didn't take no pushing from me or none of that. I mean, it's a guy's soul you talking about, man. Like a guy see me playing football, doing all this stuff, and then you see me in there for natural life for a crime that you actually committed. Like, come on, man. Everybody, like, people cold-hearted, but it's certain things that's beyond cold-hearted.
He said he knew you didn't do it, and the sister of the victim said they knew you didn't do it.
No, he actually did the crime. I'm not saying that he knew I didn't do it. Like, he actually did the crime, and he was trying to work his way into my lawsuit or something,
He wanted some money.
Yeah, he wanted some money,
And
man.
you got some money.
Yeah, I
because of all the crookedness that went on, because of the 15 years you spent behind bars. We haven't even mentioned what a lousy defense attorney you had during your trial. But the fact that you got out and you got some money, a lot of money, which was great and well deserved. And then the thing that always amazes me with people who spend many years behind bars is that you came back and all you wanted to do was help other people. And you bought a house to put up people who are getting out of prison who don't have anywhere to go. Because of Kenny and you, I learned one of the biggest things that I think I've learned over the last year and a half is that if you're paroled in Michigan for a crime you committed, you have all these wonderful benefits to you. You get money, you get housing help, you get job help, you get medical, you get lots of things. But if you're exonerated for a crime you didn't commit, you get nothing. And you saw, and I know Kenny works hard on this, but you saw a void in this system, and you used your hard-earned money that you got after your lawsuit, and you bought a house so you could put people up. Tell us a little bit about that.
The house we got is called Aunt Bobby's house. I named this after my grandmother because she taught me so much growing up. She was like the village mother, and she just take everybody in. She make sure everybody gets signed up for the right assistance they need so they can go out and be on their own. And it wasn't nothing wrong with that system. Like, we can work that same system right now.
Yep, helping people. Yeah, and I thought that was beautiful. I saw pictures of the house. I was going to come see the house, and then COVID hit. And you're also, a lot of us are wearing or have these pins that I'm showing to the camera. Innocence maintained, better, not bitter. Can you tell our listeners and viewers what this is?
What that is that's a badge for Innocence maintained and everybody that support us. And it's just letting them know that we on the right team of this wrongful conviction, man. Like, we really fighting and we doing what we say we gonna do.
And tell us about the app that you are creating for exonerees.
Right now we've got a work performance app that we purchased through Build Fire, which they actually helping us to create this resource app.
What's it going to do? How's it going to help people who are wrongfully convicted?
So a lot of times, like for me and a lot of people in our organization, we usually get calls from people and that we might not be doing certain jobs because we're trying to set up a network, whereas everybody specialized in something. So we all not stumping over everybody's feet. So what this actually does is it actually links everybody directly to the help they need, whether it's for the families that's looking for help, whether it's for a exoneree just came home, need his ID and everything, whether it's for a guy that's just been out and maybe say he messed his money up, man. We got to be able to help everybody equally.
Love it. I love it. And good luck with that app. And you and I have been talking lots about it. And I think that's going to happen really soon for you.
We're going to do the reveal on August the 15th, man.
Okay.
We're going to rent out the yacht club and we throwing the Exoneree awards.
Please invite me.
So that's my
Let
birthday.
me help sponsor.
That's my birthday.
That's your birthday?
So I'm letting y'all know that's my birthday. And we having a Exoneree awards, and we're going to show everybody how, and what's different between a Exoneree, running things and being able to look out for his brothers, rather it's somebody else that been experienced that.
Well, we're coming. All of us are coming. Save us a table. That's awesome. All right. More in a little bit. We're going to turn to Julie Baumer, who's sitting to your right. Julie Baumer, episode 77 on the Open Mic Show. Hi, Julie. Thanks for being here. So Julie has another really, really heartbreaking story. She was arrested for doing the right thing, seeking medical help for her sick baby nephew. She was convicted with no evidence of any abuse, just 2 doctors testifying about shaken baby syndrome, which we now know is junk science. It's such junk science that they're trying to change the name to abusive head trauma, which they actually did change the name to. You had a terrible defense attorney not, presenting any evidence in your first trial to help you. And you had the first case that the Michigan Innocence Clinic in Ann Arbor took that did not involve DNA evidence. So you are kind of a famous person up there. And I want you to tell us a little bit, I'm sure a lot of people have listened to episode 77. I'll never forget it. But tell us a little bit about your story and for the people who have not heard or seen it.
Basically, my younger sister, she ended up getting pregnant. It was an unplanned pregnancy. And so with the support of my family, I chose to do an in-family adoption. And after Philip was born, he was hospitalized in the neonatal intensive care unit for about a week with issues. So we knew that there was going to be some form of complications. We didn't know the extent of it. When he was 5 weeks old, he basically had a medical breakdown, if you will, because he completely stopped eating, and he just became very lethargic. So of course I called his pediatrician, and by direction of his pediatrician, I took him into the ER. This was in Macomb County. Macomb County transferred him down to Children's Hospital, where 24 hours later, he was undergoing brain surgery to relieve pressure in his brain. His brain had swollen. 24 hours after that, I was invited into the sheriff's department in Macomb County to interview, and at that point, I was I realized that I was a suspect for child abuse, and so immediately my family and I started our defense. Initially, we went back to the birth, which was traumatic, and we were. My sister had been given 2 doses of Pitocin, and so we were thinking that there was some definite issues during the birth. However, several months later, I was formally charged with child abuse, 1st degree, and 18 months later, I was convicted and sentenced to 15 years.
And you've actually, tell us what, you had 2 trials. So what happened after your first conviction?
I immediately began the appeal process. After I exhausted all of my appeals, by the grace of God, ironically, that same year in 2009, U of M opened up the non-DNA Innocence clinic, and I was able to get my case heard.
And you had a second trial.
Yes, and so I was granted a second trial where I had several doctors who testified on my behalf that weren't available to me during my first trial, that clearly stated that there was no crime committed at all simply that, well, it's not simply, but unfortunately that my nephew had suffered a form of childhood stroke, venous sinus thrombosis.
And what did the jury do in that case?
I was acquitted and I was exonerated completely.
Which is absolutely fabulous. I know the people up at U of M, worked really hard for you. And like you said, I mean, and like I said earlier, that you were the first, case that they took, and since that time, there's been a ton of SBS cases, shaken baby syndrome cases that have been overturned across this entire country. You were one of the first in the country. And how long were you in prison?
4.5 years. Well, one day is too long, isn't it, gentlemen?
Absolutely.
It was shocking that they even, tried it a second time. And, thank God you had good attorneys for after the second trial. And how long have you been out now, Julie?
10 years.
And give us an update on your life. What are you doing these days?
Oh, well, I've nestled myself into a nice little community where I work as a realtor, and to go on and fill some voids, and also to give my part back. I indulge in several service clubs and do a lot of volunteer work.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your story again with us today, episode 77 on Open Mic, for all the details on Julie Baumer's case. And last but not least, Kenny Wyniemko. One of the craziest stories I think anybody could ever hear. We did 2 episodes, 45 and 50. I think we have over 4 hours. It's as I'm interviewing more people, as I'm reading more, as I'm watching movies like Just Mercy, as I'm getting myself into this world, your story almost checks all the boxes of what could go wrong in one of these types of cases. Starting with likely dirty cops, a jailhouse snitch, a corrupt prosecutor, a bad judge, and on and on. And that's probably why Netflix did a whole series, or did a whole show on you. That's why you probably have this fabulous book that your friend Bob wrote, Deliberate Injustice, which I read, which is really good. Kenny, you've introduced me to people up at the Michigan Innocence Clinic and Bill Proctor and others. I call you a good friend, and your story I think about all the time, as I do with all the stories. You're also you're wearing your innocenceproject.org shirt, which you'll tell us about. But for the viewers who have not seen our 4+ hours on you, why don't you give us a couple minutes on what happened to you?
Well, first of all, Mike, thank you for the kind words. It's always a pleasure being with you and with my fellow exonerees and my good friend Bill Proctor. What happened to me, unfortunately, I was arrested in 1994 and charged with 10 weeks after the crime happened. The crime happened on April the 30th. I was arrested on July 14th, 10 weeks after this rape happened, okay? And at the time the rape happened, it was a big story in the Detroit Free Press, the Detroit News, and Macomb Daily, our local paper. And I remember reading about the rape, and I was thinking to myself, that no woman should have to go through that. No way. And as it turned out, July 14th, 10 weeks later, I was arrested and charged with 15 counts of CSC 1 count of B&E, 1 count of armed robbery. But the story is, the way the story started was, I managed a pair of bowling centers in Macomb County at the time. That's what I was doing for a living. I'd worked for GM for 15 years prior to that. And in February of that year, it was a Friday night. We had a family night at the bowling center. We were jam-packed, okay? So I was sitting in my office putting together a liquor order, and Terry, the counter man, came up to me. I'm sorry, Kelly, one of my waitresses, came up to me, and she said, Kenny, there's a guy on lane 12 that's drunk, and she thought he was going to get in a fight with the people with the family on lane 11. This guy was by himself, okay? So I said, okay, and I did what I normally do. If one of my employees tell me there's a problem, I just go out and check it out because I want to look at it myself to make sure everything is legit. Okay? So I came out from my office. I was leaning against the counter, and I was watching this guy on lane 12, and he was arguing with the father on lane 11, and I saw him. Oh, Kelly told me that he was drunk, and he was drinking cans of Miller Lite. Okay, so
Out of his own bag.
out of his own bag. He had two bowling bags. One bag had 2 bowling balls in it. The other bag had 12 cans of Miller Lite. Okay. So I told Terry, I said, watch my back. I'm going to go down and talk to this guy. I'm going to tell him he's going to have to leave. So I went down and I said, I asked him what his name was. He said, my name is John. I said, John, do these 2 bowling bags belong to you? He says, yes, they do. What's the problem? And who are you? I said, my name's Kenny. I'm the general manager of this place. I said, do you mind if I look in your bag? He said, no, go ahead. So I opened up one bag, and sure enough, there were 11 cans of Miller Lite in a bag. And I told him, I said, John, and he was wearing a pair of rental shoes. I said, do me a favor, okay? I said, I hate to argue with anybody. Do me a favor, take your shoes off, go take them back to the counter, get your deposit back. You're going to have to leave. And I went to grab the bowling bag with the beer. I was going to take it with me back to the office. He said, where are you going with that? He said, that's my stuff. I said, no, that's not your stuff, Bill. John. And he said, I bought that stuff here, sir. And I said, no, I know you didn't, and don't lie to me because I know that you're lying. He said, I'm not lying. Then he asked me, he said, why do you think I'm lying? And I said, because we only sell, the beer that we sell in bottles. We don't sell any canned beer at all. So I know that you're lying to me. So I grabbed the bag and I went back in the office and set it down next to me and went back to work on the liquor order. And about 10 minutes later, this guy comes back in the office and he said, I want my beer back. I says, I'm sorry, John. I says, you come and see me tomorrow, okay? He said, he's not leaving without his beer. So, and at this point, I was getting upset. I said, look, John, I hate to argue with people. I'm right in the middle of putting an order together. I said, you're leaving. Trust me, you're leaving. One way or another, you're going to leave. And he said, no, he's not. And I said, and he's not going to leave, and I can't make him leave. And I said, well, you're wrong about that, John. I said, but just out of curiosity, you want to tell me why you think you can't, I can't make you leave? And he reached in his pocket, and he pulled out a Clinton Township police officer badge from Clinton Township Police. And I told him, I said, look, John, I said, number one, I don't know if that badge is real or not. And if it is real, you should know better as a police officer that you can't bring alcohol into a business that has a liquor license because you're jeopardizing the license, my living. And he said, well, no, he's not leaving until he takes the bag, and he went to grab for it, okay? So when he did that, I got him in a headlock, and I started to drag him outside, because I was going to take him outside, throw him in a parking lot. And as I was dragging him towards the parking lot, he had the bowling bag with his 2 bowling balls in it in his right hand. And as I got to the double glass doors going out to the parking lot, he swung the bag and he shattered the glass in both doors. So I dragged him outside, threw him on the ground, and I told him, come back and see me tomorrow. Well, about 20 minutes after that, I went back in my office, and Terry, the counter man, came into my office and said, Kenny, there's 2 uniformed police officers here who want to talk to you. I said, well, send them in, So they came in and they asked me if my name was Kenny. I said, yes, it was, and they asked my last name, and I told them, and one of the cops said they understood that I had a problem with a customer about a half hour ago. I said, I didn't have any problem with anybody. And his partner said, well, I noticed that one of your porters is sweeping up the broken glass, in your vestibule. I said, that's right. I said, the first cop said, well, I thought you said you didn't have a problem. I said, I didn't have a problem. The gentleman that I threw out had a problem because he brought beer into my place. He didn't want to leave, and I tried to be as nice as I could to him, so I threw him out. And the cop says, well, did you know that guy was a cop? And I said, well, he did show me a badge that, from Clinton Township Police, but I didn't know if it was real or not. And I told him if it was real that he should know better that you can't bring alcohol into my establishment. So his partner says, is your liquor license up to date? I said, yes, it is. He says, where's it at? And I said, it's posted on a wall behind the bar where it's supposed to be, according to the law. And he said, do you mind if I take a look at it? I said, no. I said, as a matter of fact, I'll go with you. So make a long story short, he tried to walk behind the bar to check out the license, and I said, I have one rule here. Only people allowed behind the bar are the bartenders on duty, the porters who restock the cabinets, or myself. Those are the rules, okay? And his partner said, Kenny says, you seem like a real smart ass. I said, I'm not a smart ass. That's the way we run things here, okay? So they talked for a few more minutes. They were walking around, and they came back to see me, and they said, okay, Kenny, we'll see you we'll see you 5 or 6 months down the road. We'll come and, make sure you're okay. And I said, was that some kind of a threat? And his partner said, we don't make threats, we keep promises. So they left, and
Fast forward. So just fast forward.
Okay, so anyhow.
It's a good story, and it leads up to why you think you were behind
that's
bars for so many years. So what was the next encounter with the Clinton Township
I
Police?
get to July 14th. I'm at home in bed.
How many months later was this?
That's 10 weeks after the crime itself, okay?
Well, hold on. But when in relation? How long after the bowling incident?
About 5.5 months
Okay.
after this incident.
So there was a crime. There was a rape in Clinton Township.
On April 30th.
10 weeks later.
I'm at home in bed, and about 8:30 in the morning, there's a knock on my front door. And I get up and open the door, and there's a young woman standing on my porch wearing a business suit. And I opened the door up, and I said, can I help you? And she said, is your name Kenny? I said, yes, it is. What can I do for you? Well, when I said my name was Kenny, she moved on the side. 4 plain cops rushed me. They threw me on the floor of my living room. They handcuffed me behind my back, and they told me that I was going to be taken down to the Macomb County Jail to be placed in a lineup because, according to them, they had received an anonymous phone call that Ken Wyniemko from Kingswood Lanes looks like this composite that was issued in a paper for someone who committed a rape back in April. And I told, as it turned out, this lady turned out to be a detective, a female detective. And I told her and the 4 cops that threw me on the ground, I said, I don't know what you're talking about. You're making a big mistake. So they took me down to the Macomb County Jail, and I had the opportunity to meet the 2 detectives, Detective Ostin and Detective Marlette. And now I don't refer to them as detectives. After what we proved they did, I call them defectives, not detectives, okay? So they told me that I was going to be placed in a lineup because I was suspected of committing this rape. And I said, you're making a big mistake. I want to call an attorney. And I had no prior experience with the law before. And I said, I told Detective Ostin I wanted to call an attorney, and he told me that he was sorry, but he's not going to allow me to call an attorney. However, he would have one that would be in the viewing room with the victim. Okay. I said, well, I don't know that much about the law. Back then I didn't. I know now. I know criminal law now because I studied every day for almost 10 years and I was locked up. And he said that I said, I want to call an attorney again. And he says, Wanenko, one way or another, your ass is going in that lineup, quote unquote. So they put me in a lineup with five other gentlemen. All 5 guys had black hair. Everyone had a mustache. I've never had a mustache in my life. We had to say, and they put me on make me stand on a riser, like a 3-inch high riser, okay? And we had to say a line for the victim to hear. It was, "What time does your husband come home?" Because apparently, according to the victim's statement, that's what this guy told her. And as it turned out, her husband was in Myrtle Beach golfing for 8 days, so he wasn't in town during the time of the rape. So the lineup is over, and one of the jail officers that opened up the door, and I approached him. I said, "Can I please speak to that attorney who Olson told me he was in the, being in the lineup room?" And he said, "I'm sorry, he already left the building." I said, "How is that possible? You just opened the door 5 seconds ago, and I want to talk to him." Well, during that conversation, Olson was coming down the hall, coming towards me, and I had made the same request for him. "Can I please talk to that attorney?" Okay. He says, "Kenny, everything is okay. You can go home." And they released me. So I'm thinking now everything's, just a mistake. So I called my dad at the time to come and pick me up. He was 76 years old at the time. And when he came to the jail to pick me up, he asked me what was going on, and I told him just the same story I just told you. And so we go back to my house. I wanted to take a shower at this point because I was sitting in the county jail for about 5 hours. I could just feel my skin crawl. So as I pulled in my driveway, there was an unmarked car sitting in front of my home. And my dad and I got out to walk in my house. Then there was a guy that got out of the police car. As it turned out, his name turned out to be Lieutenant Al Ernst. He was in charge of the whole case. So I'm walking up to put the key in my door, and this guy comes up to me. He's plainclothes. And he says, "Wanenko, where do you think you're going?" I said, "I'm going inside my house to take a shower. I feel filthy." And he says, he can't allow me to go in my home because he was waiting for a search warrant. And I said, "Look, I own this home. I've done nothing wrong. You're more than welcome to come inside with me. But I'm going to take a shower." And I went to put my key in the door, and he pulled his pistol out and pointed it at my head. And he said, "Well, I'm going to step away from the door." And I thought, my dad started crying. My dad thought he was going to shoot me. So we got back in the car, went to my mom and dad's house. I took a shower over there and came back to my house about 3 hours later, and the whole house looked like a tornado going through it. Everything was tossed and turned, and the police went so far as to break like jars of pickles and peppers in my fridge. They broke them all on my kitchen floor. So my dad got upset. I stayed up, and I told him, "Go home, and I'll stay up and put everything back together." And next morning, I went to Myers to replace the stuff that the cops had broken. As I pulled in my driveway, the 2 detectives came in. They pulled behind my rear bumper. And I got out of my car, and I was holding a bag of groceries, and Olson said, "Wanenko, put that bag on the ground and put your hands on top of your car." And I said, "What are you bothering me now for? I haven't done anything wrong." And during that, when he said that, 4 marked cars I pulled up. They had 2 on my lawn and 2 on my neighbor's lawn. And 8 officers got out. And Olson said, "When I'm going to tell you for the last time, drop that bag and put your hands on top of your car." And when he said it the second time, all the cops, they drew their guns, and 2 of the cops that sawed off shotguns. And that's when I thought they really were going to kill me. So I put the bag on the ground, put my hands on top of the car, and I asked him, what's the problem now? And he told me that I was under arrest for this BE armed robbery and rape because I was identified in a lie-up the day before. And I looked at him and I said, I told him, I said, "I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm not stupid, okay?" I says, if someone would have identified me, number one, they would have been wrong, but most importantly, if someone identified me, you guys would never let me walk out of the jail. You'd have arrested me right on the spot. It's just common sense. So anyhow.
So you were arrested for the murder on that day. Or not the murder. Let me take that back. You were arrested for the rape and the B&E on that day.
I was arrested on the 14th. I was released, and then I rearrested on the 15th.
Yes.
But I want to make one point clear about this officer. When I told him, he was making a terrible mistake, and he said, Wanenko, I'm going to start calling you the $1 Million Man. I said, "You want to tell me what that's supposed to mean? Because I don't know what you're talking about." And his exact words to me were, quote unquote, was, "Wanenko, by the time I get done fucking with you, it's going to cost you $1 million to get your ass out of prison." quote unquote.
So as you're talking, I'm remembering why we spent so many hours with you, because you're a damn good storyteller. And no, well, I don't mean story as in a made up story. I mean, you tell this story very well. And for those of you who are intrigued by this story, episodes 45 and 50 have so many twists and turns. This could be I know they did 1 hour with you on Netflix, which I watched, which was actually really good, but you could probably have a 5-hour movie about your life. And, you know, the fact that one of your biggest offenders is the prosecutor that put you away, Carl Marlinga, that we had on our show 50, the fact that you are now dear friends with one of the jurors who convicted you, the fact that there is so much DNA that was at the scene that they didn't test, that no evidence linked to you, that there were opposite evidence that was impossible to be you, and on and on and on. For those of you who want to hear more about this, check out episodes 45 and 50. What I want to turn to now, Kenny, is your innocenceproject.org. Tell me what that's about.
Well, the Innocence Project was responsible for my release. Okay, I was still locked up in prison, and I happened to see Barry Scheck on the Phil Donahue show. He was working with DNA that would prove someone's guilt or innocence. So I wrote to Barry Scheck is out of New York. At the time, Barry was working on the O.J. Simpson case. So I decided to put together a packet of the facts about the withheld evidence in my case, how quick everything went to trial, about the snitch who lied. I wrote to Barry asking for his help. And about 5 months later, I get a letter back from Barry saying that, you know, the information I sent him sounded very serious. However, he had a backlog of over 4,000 cases in New York. That was the bad news, but the good news was they were going to open up a Innocence Project at Cooley Law School in Lansing.
And they sent it there.
And
you were the first case there.
Yeah, Barry sent it to Cooley, and I was their first case.
And they helped, and they got you out.
They got me out, and
that's amazing. That's amazing. So what is the Innocence Project doing now?
Well, they're working to free other innocent men and women. I'm on the board of commissioners now.
And you told me before we started filming today, you were the 129th person. Is it in Michigan or the country?
At the time of my release, I was the second person in Michigan, the 129th in the country.
And now this is for a DNA release?
Yes. And now in Michigan, we're up to, I think we're just under 130. But nationwide, we went from 129. As of last week, Friday, the number is 2,755. And I want people, that's a quantum jump.
Oh, my God.
But it's still, people, please believe me, it's still just the tip of the iceberg. And that's why I'm proud to be part of the Innocence Project, the Innocence Clinic, Proving Innocence with Bill Proctor, and because there's no more worthy cause in the world than to help.
And we're hearing about people getting out every week, thank God, which is an amazing, amazing thing. I want to turn to Bill Proctor now. Bill Proctor was kind enough to come on Open Up Mike, episode 51. Bill works tirelessly for wrongfully convicted people, trying to free them. He is so busy. He's helping so many people. He's a member of the Michigan Broadcasters Hall of Fame. And he's the founder of Proving Innocence. Today runs Seeking Justice. Currently hot on the trail of whokilledshannonsiders.com. I said it like that on purpose, which is an amazing website with lots of videos. But Bill, thank you and welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Mike.
Tell me how you got involved fighting for the wrongfully convicted.
I was lucky enough to have an almost 40-year career in television and was a reporter, anchor, that kind of thing, but had a private investigator in 1994 bring me a case out of Port Huron. This was a strange situation where in 1986 a college student was murdered shortly after 9 o'clock in the morning on the community college campus in Port Huron. Scott Macklem turned out to be the son of the mayor of Croswell. Well, lots of twists and turns brought the police to a fellow named Frederick Thomas Freeman. And Mr. Freeman had the misfortune of essentially dating for a few minutes, like maybe 2 weeks, the girlfriend slash fiance of the murder victim. Well, the police looked at his general level of misconduct that never indicated something so serious as to felony level. Wrote a couple of bad checks. He drove a motorcycle without a license, that kind of silly things, but just kind of an arrogant, tough guy who thought he was God's gift to women. Bottom line is, they put together a case that to this day is the most ridiculous presentation you've ever seen in your life that essentially convicted an innocent man. That was in 1986 for the trial. I took on the case 1994-95 and was among the first reporters in the state of Michigan to essentially step out in a big way to present an actual innocence claim. The claim was extremely strong, with a jailhouse snitch who got rewarded to make statements about what he heard in a jail cell that Freeman allegedly said, girls who claimed that he was some sort of a ninja master who could levitate himself from one end of the room to another, that kind of thing, throwing stars, all this kind of stuff. And the real bottom line was, this was a shotgun murder in broad daylight on the college campus. He, with all of his martial arts prowess, could have snapped this neck quietly and walked away with no problem. That didn't happen. This, we strongly believe today, had to do with drugs, Scott Macklum's use of drugs, connection to drug dealers, and bad actors essentially there. What I learned from that case, from a private investigator, is that there are so many elements of a trial that can misrepresent the truth. The fact here is that Frederick Freeman was over 400 miles away outside of, in Rock, Michigan, which is outside of, Escanaba, all right? So he's that far away, and Robert Cleveland, the prosecutor at the time, got to tell this jury, or suggest to the jury, that he rented a plane, flew clandestinely from there to Port Huron on a private field, got somebody to drive him to do the murder, got back in a car, went back in a plane and flew back. This is a guy who couldn't pay $250 for his rent. Yet, in 1986, he hired a plane to go do a murder that he had really no reason to commit. It's that kind of government misconduct that we see in these cases over and over and over.
And this person's still sitting in prison today.
He's still in prison today. He, too, has a commutation request with the governor. The Conviction Integrity Unit is looking at it as well. But the real bottom line is that over all these years, nothing puts Frederick Thomas Freeman at the scene of the crime. He did not own a weapon of the type that killed Scott Macklum. And the girlfriend connection was kind of blown up by discussion because she was one of many. So no, he wouldn't have cared that she was going to go with somebody else. The list that you've heard among your guests, the list of the tens of thousands of cases that have been examined by a number of innocence projects around the country, have come down to a very comprehensive, constant evaluation of the problem of wrongful conviction in America. 6, 7, maybe 8 specific reasons for all of them. Number 1 on the hit parade, mistaken witness identity. Number 2, false confessions. And people don't understand how somebody would sit in front of a police officer and say, yes, I did something that they did not. All kinds of elements come together to force that to happen. False confessions happen, and they happen a lot. Bad forensics. Scientists apparently have had to catch up with criminality. And that's what's going on with bad forensics. There are ways that doctors and scientists and medical examiners come to the stand and make statements that are scientifically not only not true, but can't be proven. But they get to sit up there as experts and do that kind of thing. That's bad forensics. Junk science generally. We used to hear and see on television all the time, gee, there was bite mark evidence where, oh, gee, we checked the suspect's bite mark and it matched the biting of the neck on the victim over here. It's BS. That's junk science, and there's a whole list of elements for junk science. Perjury is way up there as well, because people are forced by police investigators who threaten them to say things that are just not true. Official misconduct is just rampant. There are whole police departments that essentially build their reputations on convictions that they never should have had in the first place. And then comes snitches. People in prison are looking for ways to get the hell out. And so they find a cop who will listen to them, and they will say anything. In the city of Detroit, with that police department, snitches have put hundreds of people away where there was no evidence, only the snitch's statement against somebody who is in fact innocent, and bad lawyering. It is unfortunate that people end up smart enough to pass the bar, but not smart enough to come up with a simple defense for people who are innocent. The list is long, it's difficult, Michael, and yes, the entire country needs to know that this is more than a notion, more than a TV show, more than a television series. These are people whose lives and the lives of their families are ruined by bad work in the criminal justice system.
And from all accounts, Bill, you are helping so many people. You're working as a private investigator, trying to get people out. I know what good work you do. I've seen it. The new case that you're working on, the one that I mentioned in your intro, very compelling. And the fact that you're digging so deep on a case that, like you said, has 50, 60, 70 witnesses, but you know what? It doesn't scare you away, which is so darn impressive that you are not giving up, that you're filming and you're finding witnesses and you're digging and you're turning over every rock, and that you're finding these puzzle pieces and making a compelling argument that these two brothers up in Wanenko, Michigan, are sitting in prison for decades for a crime that they did not commit is impressive. Isn't even the right word. I don't even know what the word is. Do you want to tell a little bit about that and direct people to that website so we can let the world know what's happening?
This was the horrible murder of a teenager in 1989. July 17th, Shannon Siders essentially turned up missing after kind of driving around and having a beer, having a kind of a mobile party with about 7 or 8 other friends. The Jones brothers, Paul and Matthew, Shannon asked them to take her home that night. She had some sort of an appointment the next day, and so sometime after midnight, sometime between midnight and 2, Paul and Matthew Jones took her home. That's the bottom line element of how they were pursued for more than 25 years by rumors and innuendos and people who just didn't like them, who had a whole lot of things to say. And a Michigan State Police cold case squad walked in there in 2011, tossed out the polygraph that Matthew Jones had passed in 1993 cleanly to say, no, I didn't do it. Paul never took one because he had drug problems, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is, with 67 witnesses called over 16 days in Wanenko County, and most of those witnesses saying that they heard Paul and Matthew Jones say this incriminating statement or heard that. And by the time it's all over, 2 people were the foundation of the government's case against them in 2015. Those 2 people, one of them a prisoner, and the other one the prisoner's girlfriend, who got herself a minister's license to gain access to the entire prison system. They got together with bits and pieces of this case that they got from the inside, because there was a civilian investigator insider who had done hundreds of interviews, who drove essentially the thought process of the Jones brothers being the only real suspects. Bottom line is, in 2015, these 2 innocent men were convicted based on what people said they heard them say. And the people who were the insiders who got the connections, they said that way back 26 years ago, they happened to be 19 and 14 and drove around the forest and saw the fatal assault on Shannon Siders. Number 1 question on the hit parade: why didn't you teenagers tell the cops that you saw a horrible assault going on in the woods? And when Shannon Siders' body was finally found, why didn't you say something? But over and over and over again, those questions are never answered. It's a very difficult case.
It's a difficult case, but you do a nice job of telling the story. Who Killed Shannon Siders, SIDERS.com. It'll be on our website to watch Bill's investigation, and he's working tirelessly to free these two innocent men. So, what? Yes, Kenny.
Add something to it, just for some of the facts, just so you listeners will know. Bill was talking about eyewitness misidentification being a leading cause. It is the leading cause of wrongful convictions, and if you look at the facts amongst the exonerees, all of us throughout the country, the eyewitness identification has been proven wrong 78% of the time. 78%, that's a scary number. Okay. Snitch testimony, which in my opinion should be completely banned. 4 states have banned it altogether, as a matter of fact. But these snitches they are professional liars. Okay, that's how that's giving them a compliment. And another thing that really bugs me, and it'll bug me to the day I die, is the issue of government immunity. Okay.
Right. We're not going to get into government immunity right now, but yes, prosecutors, police, bad judges should be able to be prosecuted if they do what they did to the three of you. Right?
I agree.
Okay. So we need to fix that. I agree 1,000%. What I want to talk about is Bill's list. There's so many similarities. I want the three of you, raise your hand if you had a lousy criminal defense attorney. The worst of the worst, and I think all of yours have got disbarred or sanctioned or grieved after your trials, correct? I mean, it was abhorrent. How about aggressive prosecuting attorneys? Which ones of you had aggressive prosecuting attorneys that lied, that did everything they could do to get a conviction? They had tunnel vision. You can put down your hand for a sec. Eyewitness errors. That is over 70% of convictions that are overturned. Who had eyewitness errors? You had one. You had one. You didn't need one. Prosecutors often push experts who sound legitimate to a jury, but what they are testifying to isn't always backed up by science. Who here had bad forensic science? You definitely did. You didn't have DNA that was tested that was available.
Well, what they did in my case, they did ABO blood type testing. That ruled me out. And if anyone knows anything about DNA, if the ABO blood type doesn't match, it's impossible for the DNA to match.
Who here had perjury during their trials? Perjury. You had perjury. You had perjury, which is one of the big ones on Bill's hit parade. Official misconduct is when people in power flat out lie and cheat to lock up innocent people. They often hide evidence that shows that the suspect may not have been involved in the crime. They don't turn it over. It's called a Brady violation. Who experienced that in their case? You and Julie, in a sense. Unbelievable. Now, what I want to talk about now, we've done 6 or 7 wrongful exonerees interviews. And the thing that amazes me is the perception of how bitter you all should be and angry about what happened to you, spending dozens of years in prison combined, all of you. But you have found the spirit to work hard and help others who are left behind in these exact situations. You've started nonprofits. You've been vocal about injustice. You lecture. You help pass laws. So I want you to all tell me, Julie, I'm going to start with you. Why do you feel the way you do? How do you keep a positive attitude, and why are you trying to help others?
Well, it's simply by the grace of God. Throughout the whole ordeal, I always relied on my faith to keep me moving forward. After everything was said and done, you have to look at life realistically. You can't live in the past. You can't harbor on things. You have to move forward, and you have to find things that make you feel good. I like volunteering. That makes me feel good. Giving back, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Aaron, what about you?
One thing about me is I had to say, like, during my prison, being in prison, and going through some of the stuff that we went through and we seen in there, and it's just like, after so long, man, I just submitted, man, because I realized that I was either in a fight or die situation. And you can't just put your life on the line and not expect to die. So I became at peace with myself and everything around me, man. And I just was like, whatever God will is His will. And His will still working in my life. You see, because of all the stuff that's going on with exoneration, reentry, you see we've been very successful in getting our word out there and everything. And it's just like we got a lot more help, and we got a lot of other people that's doing beautiful things. And I really think that it's therapeutic when you help others that have been through the same situation that you've been through.
Kenny, what about you? You travel the country. You have pictures with every famous person dealing with all this stuff. You know how, and I know you had a very your faith was very strong. Tell me how you maintained that, and tell me why you do what you do now.
Well, my faith has always been strong. I'm sure Julie's the same way. And all those years I was in prison, I would pray every day the good Lord would bring the truth to light. Mm-hmm. You know, I would dedicate the rest of my life to helping people that were in the same position as I was, or any exoneree. And I've been doing it now. This coming June will be 18 years, and I'll never break that promise that I made to the good Lord. Never. And I do what I do because what happened to me or to any exoneree should not happen to any human being. And there are ways to prevent those situations from happening. And I'm going to work to the day I die to make sure we get there.
And you know, if people tune into episodes 40 and 5 and 50, they're going to learn about the laws that you help pass here in Michigan and all the good work that you're doing. And it's amazing. A key to the future in this fight for justice is awareness, education, breaking down the stigma associated with being an exoneree. Julie, tell me about how your family and friends and even strangers treated you after you got released from prison.
Well, I had a good support group throughout. Though what was most painful though is when after my second trial and the dust settled, I was very, very, very close with all of my nephews and nieces, and unfortunately they outgrew me while I was away, and that's the only way I can put it. You know, they went from, you know, being pre-teenagers to young adults starting lives of their own. And I mean, I could remember when I was 19, you would have to pay me to get on the phone with my grandfather to wish him a happy birthday. So, you know, unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
How's your relationship with your family? Do you have a relationship with your sister? No.
Yes. My younger sister, yes, she's very active in my life, and she greatly aids and assists me with caring for my elderly father. Unfortunately, we lost our mother 2 weeks after I was released. Wow. Through a stroke. So,
is this the sister who had Philip? Mm-hmm. So you guys are still close. And do you have an update on Philip?
No, I don't. I don't have any connections with him.
Does your sister have a connection with him?
No.
Okay.
No, that's by way of the decision of the adoptive family.
Okay. Aaron, how did your family and friends treat you, and even strangers, when you got released?
How they treated me real good. They was glad I was home and doing what I was doing. You know, I immediately started working on Innocence Maintained when I came home. So, you know, they was real positive about that.
That's fabulous. Kenny, same question for you.
I had a problem with my brother Tommy. He didn't. Tommy was a heavy drinker. He didn't think I was. He thought I committed a crime, and I didn't have an opportunity to talk to him since I've been home. He passed away about a year after I came home. It affected my dad. My dad passed away, as you know, when I was still in prison. But you know what? Being accused of a rape, Mike, there was a couple of times I didn't want to go around people that I didn't know, especially women. And you know, when people found out who I was, that I was in for rape, I felt like I was walking around with a scarlet letter, and that didn't go away until the actual rapist was caught. So,
Bill, I want to ask you, how do we keep the pressure up on those in the justice system to not continue their fight to put innocent people away and to start helping free the innocent?
At this stage in the country, sister, we have a serious problem because at one point you might be able to get everyone elected to a legislature to sit around a table, listen to suggestions, and walk down a road of some reasonable compromise, reasonable changes. I'm sorry, Mike, I don't think it's going to happen now. I think the lunatic in the White House for 4 years, his year before, and his continued effect on this population means that not enough people of reason and open-minded and open hearts will sit at a table and make changes in laws. I just need to remind everybody that what happens in the criminal justice system is essentially a wonderfully written set of laws and rules and processes and procedures, but we forget that people administer those laws. People have human failures. People do things that they're not supposed to do under law or even in an ethical or moral practice. I really don't know where we start, Mike, but everybody should know that, yes, not only do wrongful convictions happen, but they can be prevented. And yes, if somebody is telling you and insisting from the very beginning at trial or charges that they didn't do it, every single friend that's possible needs to step up and listen and then try to help before the conviction takes place.
You think, you would think that all of the news that's being made about the wrongful convictions and the integrity units and people getting out and podcasts like this who have 3 million eyeballs on them, that people will start getting the message that if you're a juror, if you're a witness to something, don't call out somebody if you're not 100% sure. If you're a juror, be skeptical. Ask questions. Know that just because the prosecutor or the cops say something doesn't mean it's always true. These types of things, you would hope that people would be getting fair trials. And that's my hope. My hope is that if there people out there who have said things to the police that aren't true, that after hearing stories like the three of yours, that they will come forward and say, you know what, I might have made a mistake. And I know that takes courage. And I encourage people to gather that courage, because you have beautiful souls here who are sitting in prison for crimes they didn't commit. Thousands of people, most likely around this country, that need the truth to be told. And, I want to thank you all again for being here. I want to thank you for sharing your stories, because I know it's not easy sharing the stories. I know it's not easy. And I want to tell the three of you that after hearing your stories and learning from Bill and watching the movies and reading your books, that the Mike Morse Law Firm has decided to put, lack of a better word, our money where our mouth is, our energy where our mouth is. And we have taken on a case of a man that I believe did not get a fair trial on a shaken baby syndrome case, who's sitting in prison for life on a crime that, while I was not in the home when this poor baby was hurt, I do not think he had a fair trial. He had a terrible defense attorney. There was not one expert witness called against 8 expert witnesses by the state. And I am working hard with a team of lawyers here at the Mike Morse Law Firm to get this man a new trial. And this is probably one of the hardest things that my firm has ever done. I am doing it because of you three. You have encouraged me throughout it. Bill, you have helped me, and we've had several conversations about taking cases like this. And because this man did not have the quality attorney that he should have had, we are going to fight as hard as we know how to get this man a new trial. We will share more details in the coming months. We are in the midst of it right now, getting the evidence, talking to experts, putting together a brief. I'm nervous about it. This is, you get one shot. You get one shot at a 6,500 motion, as you guys all know. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. And I just wanted you guys to hear it first.
Well, good luck to you, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, God bless you. And I wish that there were more attorneys like you that would take the time to help. You see a wrong, you try to right it. I think that's what all of us do. And the bottom line is all anybody ever wants when it comes to the justice system is the truth. So I take my hat off to you, and I commend you. May God bless you.
Thank you.
Mike, I just want to say one thing, man. I really respect you for doing that, because when I was in prison, the only thing I wanted was when I wrote for somebody to pick up my case and help me. And it never happened. I had to win an attorney at the federal level. So that's real commendable, man. And it's a lot of work, but I know you can do it.
You know what, Aaron? It wouldn't have happened had you not come on my show. And it wouldn't have happened had you guys not introduced me to Dave Moran up at the Innocence Clinic, and had we not gone up to Zingerman's and had lunch that day. So lots of things happened, and it wouldn't happen if Kevin Dietz, my good friend, didn't suggest we doing these episodes on open mic. So, it was a lot getting here. I feel emotional about it. I'm excited about it. I'm nervous about it. I can't believe that we've done 100 episodes. I'm going to have you guys back for our 200th episode if we're still around. We have gifts for you all that we're going to give to you. We're going to take a cut. I'm going to hopefully have you all put them on. We'll come back and shoot us in our new swag and our new gifts. And thanks again for being here.
Our pleasure,
Thank you.
Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
Podcast crew got you a little gift for the 100th episode.
Oh.
We just want you to open it up on camera.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I have not seen this. This is a surprise. All right, I'll get you a picture, Aaron. Look at that. Is that what I look like?
No, we tried our best.
No, that looks good.
You pulled it off.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rocky. We look forward to spending the next 100 episodes with you, and you are part of this. We need you to comment. We need you to tell us what you want to hear, what you don't want to hear, what you like and don't like. Don't be afraid to write in. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.